Hello, all. Welcome to the Institute for Recruitment of Teachers informational session. This is for applicants looking to apply to the IRT for the 2025-26 admissions cycle, application cycle. And today, let me introduce myself first. My name is Brittany Zorn. I'm the Arts and Sciences Program Specialist with the IRT, and I'm joined by my colleague Leslie. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Leslie Godo-Solo. I'm the Education Program Specialist. We're excited that you're here with us. So welcome.
Exactly right. Welcome. And Leslie and I will be walking you through an overview of who is IRT and why should you apply and how best to do that. If you haven't already, please feel free to scan this QR code and sign in. This will bring you to like a Google sheet that allows us to capture just some basic information so you can stay up to date on admissions updates and application updates throughout the next few months. We'll also direct you to the website where you can start your application a little bit later. Okay, so here's an overview of our content today. What is the IRT? What are the goals for participating in the program? What are the various components and resources that you get when you participate in the program? What is the program's timeline? How long does the program take to complete? Am I eligible, and how do I know if I'm eligible to apply? What sorts of graduate programs does the IRT support you in applying to? An overview of the partner institutions, the partner graduate schools that we work with, our consortium schools, a brief overview of the application materials that are required of the IRT application, and always leaving space for a Q&A at the end.
So what is IRT? We're a graduate preparation program. We work with students of color and all students who have an interest and are committed to social justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We provide at no cost to the student or to the scholar, as we like to call the students who are accepted to IRT. There is no cost for the services that we provide, and those services include individualized advising through your graduate application process. We help students to advocate for sufficient funding for their master's and PhDs, and we're looking for individuals who want to become K-12 teachers, counselors, principals, administrators in higher education, and faculty members. And this list is not exhaustive because we do have individuals working in nonprofits, for example, some folks that are working in state government. So it just depends on what your goals are.
Speaking of goals, what are the goals of the program? So a big part of our mission and what we hope to achieve with the programming and support that we provide is to increase the number of diverse educators in American schools, colleges, and universities from K through 12 all the way through to graduate education and beyond. We also aim to provide scholars with an informed, culturally responsive curriculum and expose you all to critical scholarship and pedagogies that reflect the experiences of historically marginalized communities, populations, and students, in particular BIPOC students. And we aim to train future educators, researchers, administrators, leaders, advisors, counselors, thinkers, scholars, and understanding the systemic barriers to higher education that many students still face in this country, and prepare them to address those barriers through their professional work, even beyond their graduate programs. So not only are we preparing you and helping you get into graduate school, we're also aiming and hoping to provide you with long-term professional skill development so that you can stay in the field of education and continue to have an impact beyond just getting your graduate degree. We're proud to say we're about to enter our 35th year of operation next year, which is bonkers bananas, but such a gift. And, that'll be just 3.5 decades of empowering talented, underserved, and underrepresented future educators to teach and serve as leaders in the American education system, because we wholeheartedly believe that diversity is essential to excellence. Always going to take the time to read out that legacy mission statement there because it has such a powerful sound. So those are the goals and the mission and values of the IRT program.
So this information is stats on our current class. We admitted 131 students. 63% of them identify as female, 23% identify as male, 13% as non-binary, gender fluid, gender queer backgrounds. Additionally, total applications, I'm sorry, representing the 140, the total applications representing.
I think we received 140 applications.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. And then this is 95 of those applications were from students who attend public, private, and minority serving institutions. 82% of our students are pursuing doctoral degrees, while 18% are pursuing master's degrees. So this trend that we've been seeing has been changing over the last few years in particular, as unfortunately a lot of students are moving away from education, particularly K through 12 education and counseling. In past years, we've been more 60-40%. So 60% pursuing doctoral programs and 40% pursuing master's programs. So education continues to be a place where we're looking for students who want to work with K through 12 populations. And then the cohort at a glance, 56% of our students are first gen. In their family, they're the first to attend college, and 58% of our students identify as low income. The 130 were admitted, and they just completed, many of them have just completed uploading their applications to anywhere from 7 to 12, 13 schools. December 1st is a big deadline. And students have to get materials in. They are still working on that, but a vast majority of their applications are due December 1. 99% of our students identify as Black, Latinx, and Asian, or are of 2 or more races, or 3 perhaps. And then 63% of our students identify, okay, we've read that stat. So 63% of students identify as female and 23 as male, 14 gender nonconforming.
Okay. So now you know what IRT is, and you know roughly who we serve and what our goals are. So what does it actually look like to be a part of the IRT program? What do you actually receive as part of your participation? So 2 central components of the IRT program are the 2 advisors that you receive. So you receive an IRT advisor who is an IRT staff person who works with you from the first month that you've been admitted, which is June, or the first month of participation, which is June, all the way through to your last month of participation, which is the following April. So for a full 10 months of the IRT program, you work with your IRT advisor to talk about your long-term career goals, to discuss how to identify a graduate program that is a good fit for you. You can rely on them as your point person for questions about the applications, about emailing faculty, about all of the components documents related to submitting your graduate school applications, your IRT advisor is the person that you will work with throughout that entire process. They'll even help you make sense of negotiations and funding offers and help you make a matriculation decision after you've submitted all of your graduate school applications. Complementary to your IRT advisor, you also receive a statement of purpose advisor. And this person works with you for a shorter window throughout the 10-month program, just for mostly 2 months or 3 months in the fall, September, October, and November, as you are actually writing your application materials. So every graduate school application is going to ask you to submit a statement of purpose. Many also require a writing sample. You'll almost always need to submit a resume or a CV. There's often supplemental essays and other documents that are required. And your statement of purpose advisor is the person who will read, revise, and help you strategize how to craft and perfect all of these written documents. Usually or maybe I should say, ideally, your statement of purpose advisor will have the degree that you yourself are seeking in graduate school. So if you're pursuing an Master's of Arts in Teaching to do elementary school education, ideally you would get an SOP advisor who has an elementary school background. If you're pursuing a PhD in Africana Studies, ideally you would have an SOP advisor who has their PhD in Africana, African American, or African Diaspora Studies. It's not always a perfect match. It's based on the availability of our alums who apply to the position, and also the educational and professional backgrounds of our staff advisors. But we get you as close as we can, and we provide a lot of other materials and support to help that process as well. And then the third, maybe largest component or most beneficial component that our alums speak to is receiving fee waivers for all of your graduate school applications. So in addition to these two advisors who give you this really targeted support around your applications, identifying programs, submitting applications, you're also receiving fee waivers from our consortium institutions who agree to waive IRT scholars applications to their graduate programs, which can be savings of $1,000 or more, because a graduate school application can cost anywhere from $50 to $150 or more dollars to submit. And so our consortium institutions agreeing to waive that cost on behalf of IRT applicants is a huge barrier removed to being able to submit your graduate school apps. Oh yes, there we go, a savings. Okay, so program components continued. Historically, we have offered a in-person summer workshop experience where scholars would get to engage with the critical pedagogies, critical scholarship, and critical theory that we mentioned earlier. However, for the last few years, we've been offering this summer workshop experience virtually. So now what the program looks like is you participate in a small selection of online courses taught by our IRT alums who serve as your summer faculty. And so the legacy in-person version had you in daily seminars. The virtual version that we're delivering now has you in maybe like every other day or daily online courses. We typically also offer things like professional development or skill building workshops around critical writing, around lesson planning, around email etiquette, or other topics that might be relevant to addressing issues of diversity, equity, access, and inclusion in education. And perhaps the most the biggest event that we host all year long that happens during that summer workshop period is Recruiters Weekend. So Recruiters Weekend is a 2-day event where we invite all of our consortium institutions to send a representative, a liaison, a graduate admissions person, a staff member, a dean, a provost of graduate studies to speak to the IRT cohort directly about their graduate program offerings. So they provide basic information about how to apply, about the different graduate programs that exist at their institution, about the resources that they have for graduate students, and then they're also available for answering questions that IRT scholars might have about a specific program or about the graduate school broadly. This is also something that we're offering virtual over the last few years, and has actually been consistently one of the most impactful events that or resources that IRT provides, according to our student testimony. Of course, the last and possibly the biggest component, but maybe also the least tangible or the most amorphous, is access to the larger IRT alumni network. By virtue of participating in the program, you have multiple opportunities to connect with alums in different settings. I already mentioned that IRT alumni serve as SOP advisors. They also sit on alumni panels. They also serve as summer faculty. And you're also able to get matched up one-on-one with an IRT alum just as needed if you are having a hard time getting in touch with someone from an institution, or if you are really looking to connect with someone who has like a specific concentration or a particular background, and it would be beneficial to find an alum who shares that quality with you. You know, your IRT staff advisors can do a little work to help get you connected with somebody. So the biggest, maybe like most difficult to quantify component to the program is absolutely access to the larger IRT alumni family.
So in terms of our timeline and when should you apply to IRT, we'll discuss that here. So currently our application just opened on December 1st. It will close on March 1st of 2025. And the students who are accepted into that program will actually begin graduate school in the fall of 2026. Okay, so you will be working with IRT. Well, let me back up just a moment. You will hear from IRT typically between April and May. Our program begins in June. In July, you'll be having classes with the faculty. You'll be talking to the IRTA advisor about your schools that you're considering. In August, our offices are closed. When we return in September, we continue to work with you. And at that time, you are tying up the schools that you're going to apply to. You're finalizing that list, and your SOP advising will start. And that goes on for 8 to 10 weeks, where you get one-on-one time with an advisor who will help you to critique all of the documents that you need for your graduate school applications. So that includes statements of purpose, your writing sample, resume or CV, personal, diversity essays, fellowship essays, and any other documents that you may be required to submit.
That,
So you always want to think about, when do you want to enroll in graduate school? When do you actually want to be enrolled? And then you want to back things up a year to actually apply with IRT. For students who are traditional undergraduates, we accept students either in their junior or in their senior years. And we do accept students who have been working full time and have decided to return and pursue a master's and or a PhD. So you can work with us in any of those capacities, as a current undergraduate, as a recent graduate, and as someone who has been working for 5 to 10 years, and now you're ready to return to school and pursue graduate studies in the fields that we'll talk about very shortly.
oh, look at you. I think you already said this, but go ahead and repeat it. Yeah, you were ahead of the curve.
As I mentioned, our application has opened. And so if you go to the application, which is www.andover.edu IRT. There is an apply button, and if you hit that button, it'll take you to a sign up. Brittany mentioned this earlier. And that is where you can enter your information, and basically we can keep you informed of the application cycle. So we would let you know, okay, it's the application is 2 months out. Now it's 1 month out. Now you only have 2 weeks. And any other notifications that we may have, you would get those. And as I mentioned, we typically notify students in April and May, and then the cohort will begin in June.
Exactly right.
And I should say we would work with you from June through basically May of the next year. April 15th is the deadline each year when you actually have to commit. And then we have a couple more sessions, group meetings and wrapping things up. And then, by May, you have, in a sense, graduated from the program. Or from the
Yeah, and
application process, not the program. We keep you forever.
Yeah, that's true. We do keep you forever. You never leave, even when you're an alum. And we have many alums who come back and participate, multiple times for multiple reasons. That said, this is a breakdown of the timeline that Leslie was just, overviewing for you. In May, you get your admissions decision from IRT. You're invited to participate or informed of the result of your application. Then June, July, and August is what we refer to as our summer pre-application advising season. So pre-application season, meaning everything that happens before you submit your application on December 1st. Your summer priorities include being introduced to your advisors, participating in IRT-led webinars, familiarizing yourself with IRT's virtual resources like Ring Central and Canvas, starting your school list research and beginning to compile a list of graduate programs to which you intend to apply, signing up for any standardized tests that may be required, and beginning to compile your application materials or, identify what application materials you're going to need to compile in the fall. So, identifying, does this program require GRE scores? How many letters of rec does this program require? Are there supplemental essays required of any of my applications beyond a statement of purpose, a writing sample, and a resume? And then come the fall, this is when you are leaning into submitting those applications, when you're doing all the dirty work of actually compiling the materials of each individual graduate school application. You're meeting weekly with your statement of purpose advisor to refine, review, and finalize your written materials. You are submitting a final school list to the IRT, so letting us know this is the definitive list of graduate institutions that I intend to apply to this cycle. You are uploading materials to the IRT and to your online applications, and you're working towards this big deadline of December 1st. So as Leslie had said earlier, December 1st is the date by which all IRT scholars will submit their graduate school applications. It's a little bit early. Some people say like, oh, many programs I've seen don't have deadlines until December 15th or January 1st or January 15th. And that is true. There is a range of graduate school application deadlines that start as early as like October and go all the way through to as late as February. But IRT really encourages scholars to stick to this December 1st deadline so that you can submit a strong, well-researched, well-written, quality application early and on time, so that you can be among the first pools of applicants considered for funding and admission, so that you can also give yourself a much deserved break after December 1st, because you will have spent a lot of time between June and November preparing for these applications. And Everyone deserves and needs some time to not think about graduate school after that. And then the winter holidays happen, and when we come back in the spring, we really lean into making sense of your admissions decisions, following up on admissions communications. We start discussing funding and how to negotiate funding for your offer, how to seek additional funding from your institution or outside of your institution. And the next big deadline that we work towards is April 15th, as Leslie was alluding to earlier, which is a generally accepted or a widely accepted deadline for graduate school applicants to make a decision about their offers of admission and funding. And then you prepare to go matriculate to your graduate program. Okay.
So in terms of eligibility requirements and what we're looking for from students or recent graduates, if you're an undergraduate, we're looking for you to have a 3.0 or higher. If you're a graduate student, say you're in the master's program already, we're looking for you to have a 3.5 or higher. We are searching for individuals who want to major in education, the arts and sciences, the arts, humanities, social sciences, math, and computer science. So if your field is in any of these headers, then you are a person we're looking for. We also are looking for individuals who are open to applying to 10 to 12 institutions within our consortium. You may also apply to schools outside of the consortium. And you're going to be in pretty great shape to complete those SOPs because we've assisted you with anywhere from 10 to 12. And we're looking for individuals who are considering a career in teaching, counseling, administration, or research and education.
I'll just add or point out
Or
that this is pretty minimum, and this is pretty
yes,
limited eligibility requirements. These are very simple, very basic requirements that we stretch the limits on all the time. So we get scholars who ask like, "Oh, if my undergraduate GPA is a 2.7, or if my graduate GPA is a 3.3, or what if my undergraduate major was like originally biology, but then I pivoted late because I realized I didn't want to be a doctor." And now I'm actually like getting a minor in education, but I want to like continue, education in graduate school, right? There's lots of circumstances, individual circumstances that can, that stretch the limits on these eligibility requirements. Where is the cutoff point? We get questions like that all the time. And the answer is we intentionally try to have very few eligibility requirements. We intentionally try to reduce the amount of application barriers, to getting admitted to, or admissions barriers that like IRT itself has. We want the most amount of people to be eligible and have access to the IRT. And we really try to prioritize meeting students where they're at and helping them get where they want to go, no matter where you're coming from. And so if this seems kind of loosey-goosey or feels like, hey, that's not really a lot, to be eligible, like, is something going on here? Is there a trick? There is no other shoe that's going to drop. Like, it truly is meant to be as accessible to as many people as possible. If you care about education, if you care about DEI issues in ed, if you want to pursue a graduate degree in the fields that we can support and have a career that's in education or closely related, we're going to try our very best to find a way to admit you and support you through that process, no matter what it looks like. Oh, and citizenship. We get this question a lot. You do not have to be a U.S. citizen to apply. You do not need to be living in the U.S. at the time of participation to participate. Certainly, there are some additional challenges to being a non-U.S. citizen, an international student, a DACA student, or to living abroad while participating. There's definitely some additional logistical, time management, and other factors to consider, but it's not like it's absolutely doable with a little bit of tenacity and proactive communication.
so we mentioned this earlier, and you can apply as a college junior or senior. You can be a student who recently graduated. Maybe you are wanting to take a gap year, or this is your second year and you're working full time, gaining some experience. And also master's candidates. So students who are actually enrolled in master's programs and want to continue on into PhDs. So these are the options that you have, and a working professional. And so, as I mentioned, for example, this fall I worked with a young lady who's been teaching K through 12, actually elementary school for the last 10 years. She has a master's already, and now she's applying to the PhD. So you can be at any of these levels and apply to IRT.
Exactly right. Okay, so a question that we get a lot is, what is IRT looking for, in their applicants? What makes a strong IRT applicant? Like, we hear you saying that, there's a broad range of folks who are eligible to apply, but what is like the cream of the crop IRT application look like? What does that scholar look like? So, if you are pursuing a PhD in particular, having some research experience, like as a minimum, having some research experience as an undergraduate, if it wasn't like a senior thesis, like a capstone or like a well-researched paper for a class, that's going to go a long way for your applications, especially to a PhD program. The more formal research experience, publication experience, writing experience that you have, the stronger an applicant that you are. It's not a requirement to have, a significant amount of research experience, but it does strengthen your application the more exposure to graduate level and college level research that you have under your belt before applying to a PhD program. Strong IRT candidates also have a commitment to their particular field of study. So we want to see, a strong academic record in terms of coursework that you've taken. Do you have foundational coursework in the field that you are pursuing, or closely related coursework to the field that you're pursuing in graduate school? Do you have professional and paraprofessional experiences that are related to the topics and issues that you hope to address through your scholarship or through your professional work after you get your graduate degree? What is the thread to justice, social justice, equity, access, education, your values that you've demonstrated like through your application to the IRT, and why you're pursuing this intended field? Do you have experience that makes that that shows that record of your particular expertise? Do you have strong writing skills? So the IRT application will ask you to submit some essays. This is like the first opportunity that you will get to reflect on your graduate school goals, reflect on your professional goals. How does it fit with the IRT mission? And it'll start helping you think about your statements of purpose and your writing samples and all of the other required materials of your graduate school application. So having a strong writing background and demonstrating your strong writing skills is another mark of a strong IRT applicant. And lastly, the ability to, or the willingness to, trust the process. IRT, as we said earlier, has been doing this for a long time. Certainly we try to be nimble and are always like adapting to evolving like student needs and evolving educational landscapes, and especially these days to evolving political landscapes. But the one thing that really makes a successful IRT candidate is leaning into that wisdom and process, trusting that everything that we're asking you to do and all of the work that will be required of you as an IRT scholar is with intention, that we are not asking you to do things for the sake of doing them, but in fact, each assignment, each task, each webinar is part of a longer iterative process that is preparing you to have the most negotiation power and the most options and the most leverage in the post-application season after you've submitted your graduate school applications and it's time to like make a decision. We are trying to prepare you to have no debt and lots of options to prepare, to choose between come the spring We don't want anyone to just accept one graduate school offer because it's the one that they got. That's not what we would consider like the most like fruitful application process. And so trusting that everything we're doing is building towards you having the most possibility for your next step, for having the most choice in your graduate school matriculation decision is really one of the strongest components of a successful IRT applicant. Okay, so yeah, the next screen is the list of fields that we support scholars in applying to.
Right. So here is a
Alphabetically,
list of
yeah,
those.
go for it.
Yes, in alphabetical order. Again, fields in the humanities, the social sciences, math, education, and computer science as well. These are all of the possible, well, not all of the possible, but this is a good list of the possible majors that we support students with pursuing.
Definitely not exhaustive, but pretty comprehensive in terms of
Yes.
like scope of the disciplines. Okay. The one important thing to note here is that we very specifically cannot provide fee waivers for and generally do not support scholars who are pursuing fields in social work, public policy, law, medicine, or business. And largely, this is based on our agreement with our consortium institutions. We often have partnerships with the School of Education and with the School of Arts and Sciences, but not the School of Law, Business, Medicine, public policy, or social work. And so, we support students like interpersonally and pursuing these programs if they're interested in them. Lots of people pursuing PhDs in a social sciences field are also pursuing a JD or are interested in pursuing a JD. Lots of people who are interested in education policy also have interests in public policy. Lots of people who are interested in school counseling also have interests in social work. And so we don't like preclude our students from pursuing those applications or, from exploring those particular fields. It's just that our ability to provide a fee waiver and to provide application support to the programs in these fields is limited. And so any applicant who is interested in these fields that we can't provide direct support on, we would say you're free to apply to these schools on your own, essentially, like sort of outside of the IRT process or in addition to the IRT process. So you're not limited from applying there, but you are limited in what you can get from IRT and applying to those particular fields.
So here you will find the IRT Consortium schools in alphabetical order. They are primarily in the Northeast, the Southeast, some on the West Coast, and also the Southwest, for example, Arizona in the Southwest here. At Michigan State, we only work with the College of Education, so we don't send any applicants to the humanities or social sciences divisions because that's the agreement that Michigan has stood by. We only work with their College of Education. The same is true at Purdue as well. Purdue University, we work with their College of Ed, not their social sciences and humanities. But you can see there's a lot of variety in the types of institutions that are in our consortium. And again, many students do apply outside of the consortium to places like UCLA, for example, or a UT Austin or John Hopkins. But these are the schools where we can secure you a fee waiver. And again, that'll save you a good $1,000.
Amen. Another question that we often get asked when it comes to looking at the list of IRT consortium schools is, can I apply to schools outside of the IRT consortium? And so similar to what I was saying with the last slide around the fields that we don't offer support for, we don't preclude you from submitting non-consortium applications. Like, you're absolutely welcome to apply to non-consortium schools. You're welcome to include those schools in the list of schools that you submit to IRT. You know, we're more than willing to support you in that process. It's just that our knowledge of the program offerings, our like relationship with graduate school liaisons, you wouldn't be benefiting from all of that at the non-consortium schools. We can't offer you a fee waiver, as Leslie said. We can strategize with you about who to identify at that school to ask for a fee waiver. And, we can like have a conversation with you about the pros and cons of considering certain non-consortium schools based on maybe your geographic preferences or your, longer term goals. Maybe there's like a particular faculty member or a particular center that exists at a school that's not in our consortium that would be like really beneficial to you and your goals. Like, all of that can be a part of the conversation. But we're obviously not able to provide like as informed and direct support in the way of like a fee waiver and access to a liaison during recruiters weekend and that sort of thing. So you're welcome to apply outside of the consortium. Just might take a little extra work, a little extra scrappiness on your side of things. Okay. Getting down to the nitty gritty. So now what is the IRT? What does the IRT cohort look like? What do you receive as part of your IRT participation? How long does the program operate? When does it start and finish? And now, the most important thing, you're ready to apply to IRT. What is required of the IRT application itself? Okay. It's, again, as I was alluding to earlier with the eligibility requirements, as simple as we can make it, truly with intention and love and care, we try to make it as easy to apply to the IRT as possible. So there is an online application. Leslie already told you all it opened on December 1st. And it closes on March 1st. At the end of this webinar, we are going to share the link and show you the website link directly to the application, so you can copy that down then. The online application will require a resume or CV, will require your transcripts. They can be unofficial copies. You do not have to submit an official copy for the purpose of the IRT application, although you will have to think about official transcripts for your graduate school applications down the line. We also have 3 recommendations that are required with our application. Unlike a standard letter of recommendation prompt, we actually have a short form that has 10 Likert scale questions and 5 short answer questions for recommenders. Since IRT is a little bit of a unique organization, it's not a graduate school, it's a graduate school preparatory program, we find that having this form with really targeted questions about what we're looking for in an applicant is a lot more useful and productive than just receiving a generic letter from recommenders. And so once you start the application, get into the portal, and put in your recommenders' names and email addresses, we automatically email them, like the system sends them an email with the form attached for them to fill out. It's very short and sweet and very simple. And then the last component that is required of the IRT application is 4 essays, 4 short essay questions. I'm pretty sure that they all have a word limit of about 300 words, so they generally and genuinely are not meant to be like long and stressful and cumbersome and complicated. They're meant to be short and sweet and concise and very straightforward in terms of what they are asking. And so those 4 components complete your IRT application: online application questions, resume, CV, and transcripts, 3 recommendations, and 4 essay questions. And that's all we wrote, folks. So now you know who we are, what we do, what you stand to gain, who we can support, what it takes to be eligible, what makes a strong applicant, and how to apply. Are there any lingering or burning questions from our small live audience? No pressure. Totally understand that you may be listening in and processing and may not have a question at this moment, the good news is you can follow up with us. So here is all the information that you need to follow through in your IRT application. We will put the recording for today's session on our YouTube page alongside last year's and the years before recruitment sessions. Here is the link to applying. So you go to andover.edu /about/outreach/IRT/IRT application. That's a long one. But you could also Google IRT Andover, and we pretty much come right up. There aren't too many IRTs out there. If there are follow-up questions, you can send them to our generic inbox, and our fabulous colleague Sarah will distribute them to the person best able to answer. You can call us, and you can follow us on all the socials. This is a great question. So we did get a question in the chat that I will read out for the purpose of the recording. So anyone watching this asynchronously can also get the question and the answer. So the question is, if we have a full-time responsibility, maybe a job or an internship or a fellowship or something else, during the summer, would it be possible to manage both IRT and this other full-time responsibility? I'll take a quick stab and then I'll let Leslie chime in. I think it's a yes and, is it possible? Yes, definitely possible, but it will require a lot of diligence on your part. You would have to be proactively communicating with your IRT advisor and your summer faculty. You would have to be really good at managing your time in terms of following up on recordings and, attending or viewing information, advising webinars or online classes that you missed live, but you can get that information within a few days through a recording that we'll share through our digital platforms. And so it'll be demanding and it would be rigorous and it would definitely be a lot to juggle, but it is possible and people do it. So that's what I would say. Leslie, what would you add to the question of someone doing something full-time in the summer?
I would agree that time management becomes a huge, huge issue. It is possible, but some of the things that you may be juggling is different time zones. For example, if you're on the West Coast, if you're abroad, then you're really talking about different time zones. I worked with a student who was in Asia and 12 hours ahead of us. So that can be difficult. We work that out. And the more information you can share about, that you're going to be away or that this is your schedule, and this is the time when you're free, we typically can work through those issues and still support students. But it is hard because applying to graduate school also is like a full-time job, unfortunately. And if you're going to do it well, and well means that at the end of the process, you have a number of viable options with full funding and support, then there are definitely certain things that you're going to have to do, and we're going to take you through that process. The process is in depth, in probably a way that you've not done anything else before. So those are things that you want to consider when you think about, juggling work. And then if you have family on top of that, if you're taking care of a family member, that also complicates it. And how can you carve out the time that you need to work on your statements, to meet with your advisor once a week? Some of the things that we do is we can have that meeting every week at a certain time for you. Or if you need more flexibility, that can be managed as well. But all of that requires a conversation with your IRTA advisor and also your SOP advisor, because you may have two advisors. It's also quite possible that you have one and they're working with you on both your school list and your SOP, but communicating with them proactively is going to ensure that you get through the process and have a number of options on the other end.
Yeah, I appreciate the articulation of like if you want to do the process well, like to the best of your ability, and give yourself the best chance at having multiple fully funded offers, the most options, then it is like a full-time job already. So that was a really good framing of that, Leslie. I appreciated that. There was something that came to mind as you were talking that I wanted to shout out, and it's gone now, so we'll see if it comes back in the next minute or two. um oh yes, I
But
remember.
feel,
I remember.
uh,
To the question of like, can I manage both? What I would say is, if you apply to the IRT and you are admitted, you receive a syllabus that has all of the dates and deadlines and benchmarks, laid out for the whole 10-month process from June through to the following April. So you really get to make like a very informed decision about like, do I have the time and capacity to do this? You'll get a matriculation contract or a matriculation agreement that also like outlines some very specific like time commitments that you're like agreeing to uphold throughout your like participation. So it's worth it to apply to the IRT and see if you get in, and then, get these documents and then be able to make a really informed and thoughtful decision. You can always decline your IRT admission offer, and we don't look poorly upon that. In fact, we have implemented a policy in the last few years where an admitted scholar to the IRT could defer their admission for up to a year or two. But without having to submit a new application. So like you could apply to IRT, get admitted, read the contract, say, oh, heck no, I can't be doing all of that while I'm also studying abroad in, wherever. And then you can opt to defer until 2025 and say, well, okay, let me take this summer to do this thing that I got going on. Let me take this year to graduate from my undergraduate degree, or let me take this year to have a year to prepare, a gap year to prepare, and then I'll come back to IRT in the following cycle in 26 or 27. And that is totally a valid, like viable pathway forward. Like we want you to be able to make an informed decision about participating. We want you to be able to participate at your fullest capacity and get the most out of the program. And that's why we sort of have this built-in deferral option for admissions. So feel free to not be discouraged and to still apply to the IRT, knowing that it's not like you're using your one like golden ticket that in this application. Like you can participate again, you can even apply again, after declining an offer of admission, and we don't frown upon that in any way. Okay. Final thoughts, questions, wonderings? Thank you so much for the thoughtful question. You are so welcome. Definitely anyone watching this asynchronously who does have thoughts and questions, send an email to the IRT inbox. As I said, our colleague Sarah will distribute those emails to the folks in the office who are best able to answer, me, Leslie, one of our other directors or advisors. Yeah, we hope to see all your applications.
thank you.
Okay, friends,
Be well.
I think that's all she wrote here. So let me stop sharing. Thank you, everyone, and